All right, everyone. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Like I said, we're recording this, so if other people want to go back and look at it, they can. My name is Paula Pashby. I'm Solano County Master Gardener. And today we're going to talk about how to create a garden to attract various pollinators. Again, we would have loved to be able to be in person today, but Zoom, I guess, is the next best thing. Also, as I said, Jennifer Baumbach is here, so Master Gardener Program Coordinator, and she'll be moderating and checking on what we call chat. So basically, the Zoom guidelines for today, we're going to have our microphones muted and our videos off, except for the presenter, just because it makes it a lot easier. And then we're going to focus on something called chat, so that way we can still have some interaction. And it looks like this. So you should have it on your controls. What you do is you just go into chat, and then you just type in your question or comment and press enter. Try to choose right in here to show it to everyone so everyone can see the question and we can all benefit from your question or comment. And we really encourage comments and sharing of expertise here. Okay, so gardening to attract pollinators. In this presentation, we try to focus on how we can create pollinator gardens on a local level, and would like to share with you today and hopefully inspire you to create your own pollinator garden. So first we want to talk about why is it even important? So we'll go in and look at that. We're going to look at who are the pollinators, and then we're going to take a look at human impact on these pollinators. And then we want to discuss how we can help. And then what to plant locally, which plants attract which pollinators, just in case you want a certain specific type of pollinator. And then we'll offer some resources to help plan your garden. There's tons of resources out there, a lot of them for native California plants, but sometimes it's hard to kind of siphon out the local plants that do the best. Okay, and the handouts. So if you go into chat, we actually have the handouts in there, and the handouts go into more detail on caring for the plants. We're going to talk about such as sun and requirements for water. So if you want to look at that now, or you can do it at the end of the presentation, it should be in your chat setting. And if it's not there for some reason, you can email us and I'll make sure you get the handouts. Okay, so why is pollination even important? So pollination leads to the production of fruit and veggies we can eat and seeds that will create more plants. And it's really fundamental to our food supply. It's vital to 70 to 75% of the world's flowering plants, believe it or not. And over 1/3 of the crop species are totally dependent upon pollination for reproduction. Most flowering plants have developed a variety of methods for pollen transfer, such as wind, water, self-pollination. However, the most common method for pollination are the pollinators, the bees, the butterflies, the hummingbirds, etc. So the plants provide protein-rich pollen. So the protein is in the pollen, and then the sugar is in the nectar, and that's what's attracting these pollinators. And this is really mutually beneficial for plants and pollinators. So in exchange for providing pollen and nectar, the plants receive the pollen transfer, moving pollen from one plant to another, fertilizing the plant and initiating production of seeds and fruit. Also, only fertilized plants can make fruit and or seeds, and without them, the plants can't reproduce. So now let's take a closer look at these pollinators. And if you want, you can list some of them in your chat to get used to using chat if you want. Okay, so who are these pollinators? So simply put, a pollinator is an animal that moves pollen from plant to plant or part of a plant to part of a plant, causing plants to make fruit or seeds. There's many different types of pollinators. So we've got birds, butterflies, bees, wasps, ladybugs, bats, beetles. Beetles are actually a key pollinator for California poppies. And some other ones people don't even realize, like flies. I mean, they actually help in the pollinating process too. So we're going to look at some details on some of the pollinators, like lifespan, their plant and flower preferences, habitat, etc. But before we do that, let's take a quick look at the human impact on these guys. So humans have had such a dramatic impact on the ecosystems of the Earth, and this is directly affecting many of these pollinator species. So we've got pesticides and herbicides. So they're designed to kill insects and plants that people don't want around their gardens, but unfortunately, they're killing the beneficials and some of the native plants. Loss of habitat. So people's ability to transform landscapes from meadows and fields into cities, neighborhoods, and farmlands is totally disrupting the natural habitats. The flowering plants, bushes, and trees that pollinators rely on for both food and habitat are completely disappearing. So air and light pollution. So artificial light attracts insects, and what it does is it pulls them from their natural ecosystem. So their frenzied activity around lights, it exhausts them and makes them easy prey for predators in that ecosystem. Invasive species. So humans' ability to move people and products all around the world means that non-native organisms are also being moved into new ecosystems, both accidentally and on purpose. So these invasive species are disrupting ecosystems by competing with native species for resources. And then we have good old climate change. So this one's a biggie. Human activities that contribute to climate change are creating big challenges to these pollinators. Climate change is causing seasonal patterns that change in unexpected ways. For example, some pollinator plants are blooming earlier in the year. And when these plant cycle patterns change, pollinators can be affected in a variety of ways. Like they might arrive on the scene after the flowers have bloomed. They might become confused about when to migrate, when to hibernate, and they might miss their cue to reproduce. So moving into the next cycle, like cocoon or chrysalis. So it really has an impact on them. So human impacts are challenging pollinator species' ability to survive and thrive. But once we understand some of these things, it gives us a chance to help out at least at a local level. So let's take a closer look at who these pollinators are and what we can do to attract them to our own local gardens. Okay, here we have our bees. So there's many different types of bees. We could be much more specific, but don't have the time to go into it. But there's lots of resources out there for those who want to venture further into the interesting world of bees. But this is just some general facts so we understand them a little better. So with bees, the lifespan, it varies depending on the type of bee. Honeybee lives from 100 to 150 days. Bumblebees live around 30 days. The bees use their antenna to detect odor. So we want to have plants and flowers that are really fragrant. They can smell a flower or a toxin, an illness, something like cancer, from up to 2 miles away. They hear by feeling physical sensation. And the buzz sound we hear is actually their wings moving. And a lot of people are worried about promoting bees in their gardens because they don't want to be stung. They don't want their families to be stung. But the male bees don't even have stingers. And most of the native bees are really docile. They are usually solitary, so they don't have a queen and the rest of the hive to protect. So they're really not big stingers, only if they're really threatened. Honeybees, if they feel threatened, they will sting, but usually not that often. Okay, so if anyone has any fun facts on bees, I know there's a lot of people that have real expertise in bees here. You can share it in chat if you like. Okay, so the next one we're going to look at are hummingbirds. So with these guys, their lifespan is usually about 3 to 5 years. Vision is a hummingbird's most important sense. So they're not so much into the sense of smell like the other guys. They really use their sight. They're attracted to bright colors, mostly red, but they love orange, yellow, and white also. And these guys can see further than a human, and they see motion really well. And hearing is second to sight. So they hear smaller frequency than humans, but more acute sound recognition skills, such as pitch, tone, rhythm changes, etc. Okay, so butterflies, another fun pollinator to have in our garden. Their lifespan, again, depends on many things and varies greatly. So depending on the species, could live anywhere from 1 week up to 1 year. The average is about 1 month. So the 1 week ones are those little tiny ones you see floating around. Their most important sense is smell, and they use their antenna to smell flowers. They can see ultraviolet light. They're attracted to white, pink, purple, red, yellow, and orange. So they have a really good sense of smell and sight. They use sensory structures on their feet to taste and identify plants. And for hearing, they feel vibration. So if anyone has anything to add to the fun facts on butterflies, feel free to put that into chat. Okay, another favorite, ladybugs. So ladybugs are actually beetles. Their lifespan is between 1 and 3 years usually. The antenna and feet help with their sense of smell, touch, and taste, just like the butterflies. They can't see color at all. So these guys only see shades of gray, black, and white. So they're really relying on their smell, sense of smell. The ladybugs love light and warmth. And it's kind of interesting. Their spots are actually warning to predators. So as they get older, their spots actually fade. So you can tell how old a ladybug is that way. And these guys won't fly in temperatures under 55 degrees. So that limits their ability to fly. Okay, so next we're going to look at a chart that shows these and other pollinators' flower type and color preferences. Okay, so this one is in the handout. It's a pollinator color guide. And basically, you know, we looked at the color preferences, and you'll have this in the handout, but it kind of goes into the fact that butterflies are looking for flowers that have more flat top flowers. Hummingbirds, they're looking for tubular flowers with lots of nectar for those long beaks. So, and again, this is going to be in your handouts. Okay, so now that we know a little more about the pollinators and what they're attracted to, let's dig into how we can actually create a pollinator garden at our homes or in our community and look into what plants we can use. So if anyone has ideas on creating a pollinator-friendly garden, go ahead and put that into chat. Okay, so some of the things to get started with a pollinator-friendly garden. Eliminate pesticides whenever possible and learn to control pests naturally. So University of California Integrated Pest Management recommends if you must use a pesticide, use the least toxic possible. Best case scenario is not using one at all. Also read your labels carefully and spray at night when the bees and the other pollinators are not active. Keep in mind, so you also have some other beneficial pests or beneficial insects that some people think are pests. So try to learn about those first before trying to get rid of them. A good example is the ladybug larva A lot of people say it looks like a little dragon, and they
Okay.
automatically want to get rid of it before knowing what it is. It is kind of an ugly looking thing, but it's very beneficial. So just kind of learn about the beneficials. Okay, so another way to create a pollinator-friendly garden is use a wide variety of plants that bloom from early spring into late fall, and plant a variety of color, and plant same colors in large clumps. That way the pollinators are able to find them better. So they usually recommend maybe 3 to 5 plants, depending on the size of them, but try and keep them together. And then tempt with fragrance. So it's fun to have fragrance in our garden, kind of aromatic, and it's most pollinators' primary scents. So it's kind of a win-win. And this one's kind of interesting.
Huh.
So avoid modern hybrid flowers, especially those with doubled flowers. So in doubled flowers, the male fertilization part that typically consists of pollen has been transformed into extra petals for a fuller, showier blossom. So the flower's going to last longer, but what happens is there's much less pollen for these guys. Okay, so another way we can help is to create resources in our garden. So spare that limb, provide a place to nest and rest. Large screening shrubs make great shelter for all sorts of pollinators. You can build a bee condo. There's all sorts of things you can do. Bee barn, so you can create a bee barn, and exposed dirt. So a lot of our native bees, they are ground nesters, so they need to be able to get in. They need to penetrate the ground so they can get in to build their nests. So just make sure you're not mulching everything. Just have a little space for them so they can have their nesting underground. Make a bath available for birds, bees, and other pollinators. Just make sure you provide shallow areas for the bees. Providing hummingbird feeders. That brings them into our yards too. Just make sure that you clean it often and change it often. And this one's kind of funny. So include what I like to call the sacrificial plant. So include larval host plants into your landscape. So something that maybe the caterpillars like to munch on, but they're going to turn into great pollinating butterflies. So you can just stick it in the back where no one can see it, and these guys can have at it. And then know your local native plants. Okay, so just a quick rundown on specific plants these pollinators love, and then we'll list some of the main plants that are not only California native, but also tend to do well in our local county conditions. So the plants identified here are identified by their common name, but if you need to, if you want to know the scientific name, you can go to the Master Gardener website and find that information out. Okay, so just a quick rundown. I won't name them all, but if you have other ideas of what you've seen them interested in, feel free to put that into chat. That would be great. Butterflies, so they love aster, bee balm, they love daylilies, dianthus, marigold, and milkweed is huge for monarch butterflies. So the caterpillars really need that to survive. So that might be a nice one to put in your garden. Caterpillars, so borage, fennel, lupin, again, milkweed, salvia. So these are just some of the plants, and they're beautiful plants too. Okay, hummingbirds. So these guys love bee balm, coral bells, fuchsia, sweet william, zinnia, and bees, wide variety of plants. This is just listing a few of them. Aster, California lilac, western redbud, California poppy, catmint. So these are all wonderful plants. They do well locally and look great in your garden. Okay, so what to plant? How about California native plants? What about them? So California native plants, which are adapted to local soils and climates, are usually the best sources of nectar and pollen for California native pollinators, since they evolved together. In California, planting California natives can help save water, reduce maintenance and pesticide use, and invite our beneficial pollinators into our gardens. Incorporating native wildflowers, shrubs, and trees into any landscape will promote local biological diversity and provide shelter and food for a wide variety of wildlife, including our pollinators. So then many times people say, well, can I only use native plants? Is there a problem with non-native? Most non-native plant species are not really a problem, and some are considered beneficial and will attract pollinators. So non-native plants are fundamental to our lifestyle. Most of our food crops, such as potatoes and wheat, are not native to California or United States. Just make sure the plant isn't invasive, waiting to take over and push out California native plants. So they can do this because the natural pests, foraging animals, diseases, and weather conditions, which kept the plants in check in their homeland, are absent here. So they deprive our wild animals of food and shelter too. Okay, so here are some fun ideas for garden design, just some quick pictures. So depending on what you're doing, you might be creating a brand new garden, or maybe you're just incorporating some plants to attract the pollinator into your garden. Maybe before buying the plants, sketch out a plan, especially if it's new, so you can look at the form, the shape and size, the scale of the garden. Take into consideration site constraints. So you want sun for your vegetables and sun-loving plants up to 6 hours a day. You can work on really cool themes like colors, native plants, drought-tolerant plants, shade, sun, different sizes, contrasts, and features. You can also think about what you want to add into your garden, especially a fountain for the pollinators. They like the running water if possible. And determine what kind of drainage you're going to need. So just basic garden design. Okay, so, and if anyone has any ideas on garden design, go ahead and add that into chat too. I believe after the presentation, we can turn that into a document that we can look at and see all the comments and questions. Okay, so now let's check out some plants that should do well in your own pollinator garden. There's many possibilities, tons of different plants. So this is just listing a few just to get people started. If you already have a pretty well-established garden, maybe one of these you don't have in your garden and you'd like to add that. Okay, so the first one we have is aster. Beautiful plant. Butterflies love this plant. It also attracts many types of native bees and provides them with both the pollen and the nectar. This is a perennial that flowers throughout summer, and the flowers are beautiful lavender blue daisies, and I've seen it pairs really well with plants that have silver foliage. Really cool looking. Okay, the next one is the California lilac. Bees and butterflies love this one also. There's a wide variety of shrubs within this group. They're an excellent source of pollen for the early spring bees. And they can be trained as a small tree, and they're covered with clear blue flowers. Really, really pretty. Okay, western redbud. This is one of my favorites. I don't have it yet, but I would love to get it. So hummingbirds, goldfinches, butterflies, and bees love this one. And I know a lot of you out there have this already. If you see curious scoops on the edges of its leaves, they look like half circles. So over on the right-hand side of the screen, see these little half circles cut out of the leaf. That means you have a leafcutter bee or bees living close by, which is really cool. They're really nice native bees. And so what they do is they munch out these little half circles. And if you look on the bottom picture on the right-hand side, you see this bee is carrying it to its nest. So this could be, you know, they maybe in some sort of wood or your bee barn or something like that. And it's really cool. Basically what they do is they use it like as wallpaper for their babies. Okay, so this is native to the foothills of California. It blooms in spring and it has really pretty magenta pink pea-shaped blossoms. All right, then we've got the California poppy. So this attracts a variety of bees, particularly bumblebees, honeybees, sweat bees, but it's mainly pollinated by beetles. So that's another way, another thing that we need to do. We need to know which are beneficial insects and which are pests. So a lot of the beneficial beetles people think might be pests, might be like pincher bugs or something. So it's worth it just to really learn about the insects. Butterflies are also attracted to the poppy nectar. After the flowers are gone, the birds are attracted to the seeds. So that's kind of cool. And it's technically an annual, but they'll perennialize by sprouting the following year from their roots and lower stems by reseeding. Okay, so we have blanket flower. I'm sure folks out there have this one. At the right time of day, the blanket flowers are mobbed by honeybees. It's really cool. Butterflies and moths love the flowers along with a dozen species of native bees. So blanket flower in the valley, they actually attract a native bee called longhorn bee, which is a really sweet one. This plant may be short-lived in heavy soil, so just consider that. Lavender, blooming early and lasting into summer. This one is definitely a go-to. It's also popular with the large carpenter bees and range of other smaller bees. The butterflies and the hummingbirds visit the flowers too. So you get a wild array of pollinators on this plant. They're sun-loving, they're drought-tolerant. They do require good drainage and occasional summer watering, but not much care, really. They can be pruned to shape to increase branching or keep a compact form. Okay, and then we have this Cleveland sage. So bees, butterflies, hummingbirds love this plant. This one is a great example of a low water plant. So again, in your handouts, it'll go into the sun and the water requirements for these plants. Again, most of these are local, have proven to do well locally in our counties. So it's an evergreen shrub with fragrant foliage. It has twirls of blue lavender flowers on the spikes, blooming spring into summer. Okay, and hummingbird sage. This one is beautiful. It's a favorite among hummingbirds. It's a spreading perennial, has wonderfully fragrant foliage, red flowers in spring and summer. And milkweed. This one's huge. This is host plant for the monarch butterfly. So monarch larvae or caterpillars feed exclusively on milkweed leaves. Without milkweed, the larva would not be able to develop into a butterfly for the monarch. It provides nectar for bees. It's deciduous perennial, and it has pink and cream flower clusters. It's really, really pretty. And then we have manzanita. The specific one that seems to do well here is the Howard McMinn. So this one actually blooms in January and February, so it's perfect for early bees and hummingbirds. And it's an evergreen shrub. And it's got beautiful, the wood on it is that beautiful red color. And California fuchsia, main pollinators, hummingbirds and bees. It's deciduous perennial, and it's got awesome red flowers. And then yarrow is a fun one to have in the yard. Their flowers attract a lot of beneficial insects, including bees and butterflies. This one does best in well-drained soil. There's many different colors to choose from. It's a long bloomer that makes an excellent cut flower, fresh and dried. It's actually one of the most carefree perennials. And I think it's really fun that it has all the different colors. Okay, and then we have columbine, so serpentine columbine. This one is another hummingbird magnet. It loves the flowers, easy on its beak, so it's perfect. And then catmint. So this is sought by a wide variety of bees like honeybees, leafcutters, digger bees, blue orchard bees for its nectar, and then some of the smaller bees also use it for its pollen. So if you ever go over to Haagen-Dazs Honeybee Haven, they have this over here, and you can just see every type of bee on this plant. It's beautiful. This one can also help deter other pests in your garden like aphids and squash bugs. So it's kind of multi-purposed. So this is a perennial that blooms from spring to early summer. And then, so the ones that we just looked at are California natives. Now I'm just going to show a couple of non-natives. So Cape honeysuckle, it's a favorite of hummingbirds. The flowers and leaves look like they're from a miniature trumpet creeper. The plant is called a vine, but what it does is it produces fast-growing upright shoots that actually lean on support rather than attach themselves to it. So it begins blooming in July or August and blooms until the cold weather arrives, depending on when that is. So they're long bloomers. I've seen them where it seems like they're blooming forever. Butterfly bush. So another non-native, but boy, it attracts bees and butterflies and beneficial flies. It's drought tolerant and virtually problem-free. And then we have Alstroemeria, sometimes called Peruvian lily, non-native, but this one's great. It's another hummingbird and bee favorite. It's prized for its attractive, colorful flowers, which are frequently used in long-lasting cut flower arrangements. Okay, and the last one, like I said, there's tons of other plants. These are just showcasing a few of them. Potato vine. So the flowers attract bees and hummingbirds. They get round, dark blue fruits and can follow flowers if pollination occurs. They're native to Brazil. So potato vine grows in zones 9 through 11. So they should do well here. And if you have any other ones you can think of, go ahead and list them in chat. I know there's so many of them, but I just wanted to pick out a few. So for your resources, there's so many places you can go to get an idea of what to plant. So we have the Master Gardeners of Solano County, or National Master Gardeners, University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources Statewide Integrated Pest Management Program, also known as UCIPM, has great resources. UC Davis Arboretum and Public Garden has really great resources. In fact, one of their resources is a handout. University of California Davis, the Haagen-Dazs Honeybee Haven, great stuff there. California Native Plant Society, the William Jespin chapter of Solano County, or other local counties will identify California native plants that do well in your local community. So that's a good resource. Insight Garden Program, CalFlora, and it goes on and on. Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And if you have any questions, or if you want to share more information, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Paula, I posted in the chat a picture of longhorn bees.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, I'm going to go in there and check it out. Yeah, that was the one, I think, Jennifer, that you had sent me. You had a really good picture of one that you got.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else? Any other comments or ideas?
Yeah, this is Dave. This is Dave, and I was going to say I've been working on getting a pollinator garden in the back, and some things make it, some things don't. But in the front, I replaced my grass with Myoporum, And it is amazing for the bees. It's covered my whole front yard area now, and I don't have to mow it, don't have to hardly water it at all, but it has white flowers most of the summer, and it's probably got 200 or 300 bees on it every day. Just
Wow.
I wasn't expecting that, but it was quite a nice surprise.
Oh, that's beautiful. So what's it called again?
Myoporum, Myporum, I think. And it's just an evergreen ground cover, but it blooms little white flowers, and the bees love it.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
great. So that might be a good alternate for people that want to get rid of their lawns.
Yep, that was me.
Nice.
I like to plant lamb's ears because the wool carder bees come to it, and they're a lot of fun to watch.
Lamb's ears.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. So a specific bee comes to them, the wool carder bees.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I keep a patch of that.
I put in mine, yeah, I have a couple. The Salvia melissadora, which is the grape scented sage. That's an amazing plant. It gets kind of big. You could probably keep it under control, but it smells like grape Kool-Aid.
Oh, cool.
And especially in the evenings when it's warm, kind of like spring, summer evenings, you can really smell it like throughout the neighborhood. But the bees, all different kinds of bees. Mostly I see the carpenter bees and honeybees. I'm sure there's some natives in there as well. And then opposite to that with the little tiny flowers, the Salvia nensis. And I think that's from like Africa, I can't recall. But it's got super tiny little flowers, super tiny little leaves, but the bees are just covering that thing. So two very
What's that one called again, Jennifer?
I put it in the chat, Salvia nensis.
Okay.
Oh.
Because I actually, when I started the presentation, I probably had like 5 or 6 different types of salvia. So I, for time's sake, I had to pull some out. So I'm wondering if that's one of them that was in there.
Yeah, they love salvias.
Yeah.
And then the passion flower, I don't know what the scientific name is, but it's beautiful and it grows in the shade.
Oh.
And it's a vine, and the carpenter bees just love it.
Passion flower.
And that attracts butterflies too.
Yes.
Nice.
The larvae are on it, yeah.
Wow, these are some great ideas. Is anyone starting a brand new garden? Probably not with this group.
There's always room for more.